We're beyond the worst case scenario. We're beyond that 900. We're now looking at 1,100 parts per million. For the 5 years after this scientific panel said we gotta reach a peak and cut our emissions, we grew faster than at any time in history. My daughter was born in my second daughter, in 1980. She's 32 years old. Half the emissions that we've put up there, CO2, this greenhouse gas, have happened in her lifetime. Half of human emissions in my 32-year-old daughter's lifetime. You know? So I started getting a little concerned when people said, we were down here 100 years ago, and 100 years from now we're going to be up here in that 1,000 to 1,100 range, and I put the temperatures next to that. Here's the problem. We'll grow from about 275 parts per million at the start of the Industrial Revolution. If you double that, that's or 280 parts per million. That would give you 3C of warming, okay? The problem is, as Dave Roberts points out, the threshold for danger is 2 degrees centigrade. There's nobody out there who even believes that's safe. Now, most scientists are really concerned that that's too high. But let's assume that's the political number you're going to hear all about. Well, we're right now almost at 400. We're going to be there by 2015, say that right, and we're growing at 2 to 3 parts per million a year. If we keep doing what we're doing, we'll be over that 450 parts per million by 2026 to 2030, somewhere in that time frame, depending on just how fast we keep growing. That's what got my attention, this chart. I said, can't let that happen. So we're going to talk about CCL, and then I'm going to shut up. We had 175 members in Washington last summer. When I said we go to Washington, we do it at our own expense. We stay. Some people, I'm staying in a hostel because I wanted people to come. I took 4 students with me to Nebraska because I like to get the students involved. This is your future we're talking about. It's my kids and you guys that are going to go through this. So if I got a hostel room and I say, I'll stay in a bunk bed now, $38 a night, come stay with me. And we'll do some lobbying for 5 nights. And that's what we do. And we had 20 from Wisconsin. We had meetings with 303 members of Congress last summer over the course of 5 days. This is the early risers. This is a part of our group, I don't know, 60, 75. And there's Madeline, and where am I? There I am. So I'm there. We all have our ties on, and it was hotter than hell, which helped. They were having a record heat wave. So the drought had gone on, and for the first time, Republicans really wanted more and more, and they were very responsive. The point is, you don't do this alone. It's a team sport. You go in groups, you've got a leader, you've got a plan. You don't send people out there just willy-nilly, hey, go talk to people. You know, there's training, and it's not that complicated. Everybody has a part. Here's my hostel. I said, as long as I have my own bed, I am too old to share a bed. You give me a bunk bed, I'm fine. This is where we're staying. This is not a good ground level view. It's actually a pretty nice neighborhood. And we're 6 minutes from a hotel. Instead of spending $250 a night, you know, it's $38 a night. We can live like this for a couple of nights. If I were on a bike ride and somebody said you could stay here instead of in your tent, I'd be rejoicing. All right. So back in the district, that's what we do in Washington. Back in the district, I mentioned, we write letters to the editor. We write a lot of letters to Congress. And we participate in the national phone call once a month. There are chapters all over the country and in Canada, CCL, and the congressional districts. And so every Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, we have a meeting like this. And there is a national call. They bring in national speakers to do some of this. Whoops. Never mind. Let's hit a button. I got it. Oh, got it.
Push too fast.
One bump.
One bump?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so bad at tech. And then we meet with the front end. Anyhow, what I wanted to do was say, get educated at this meeting, and then we get political. There's always we have a speaker for usually about half an hour, national speakers, Ben Amory, Lovins, Bill McKibben, Catherine Cato. It's a huge, a who's who of climate resource people, all helping us out. Hanson has spoken a couple of times. And then part of the meeting is devoted to political strategizing and, you know, how we do it, and support group and that kind of thing. There is a lot of camaraderie, I will say, among the groups in Wisconsin. We have a chapter in Stevens Point, we have one in Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee, Madison. One's gonna start up in Oshkosh. I spoke there 2 weeks ago. They're really a great group. It's all students, not one community person. It was 30 students for this, and they're terrific. It'll be the first CCL chapter that's all students in the country. And that'll be interesting because, you know, there's turnover and there's no continuity and kids graduate. And we'll see how all that works, but boy, they got enthusiasm. Okay, our goal, as I said, is a carbon tax. I really am gonna stop and ask you some questions and answer questions. Here's the simple version. This is the bill that we had in last session. It was called SOCA, the Save Our Climate Act, and it had 3 elements. One is a fee on carbon. The other is a dividend. We give it all back, whatever money is collected. This is on the sheet. If you look at the back of your sheet, you'll see. Actually, go with the front of the sheet. I'll just speak off this at one point. There's a fee of $10 a ton on carbon. That'll raise $55 billion a year. You increase it by $10 a ton every year until you get what you want, which is the first bullet here. You want an 80% reduction. These are the principles in carbon emissions, because that's what the science says. Science says that's what we need to do, have an 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050. So the tax has to be big enough to do that. You can start small and then increase. That would be about 10 cents a gallon. Each $10 is 10 cents a gallon at the pump and a little over a penny per kilowatt hour. So, you know, that's the trick. If it's all passed forward, you impose the tax, or it's not really a tax since government is not keeping the money. It's a fee. You impose the fee at the first point of sale, the mine, the wellhead, the border crossing. What do you do when you get the money? You give it all back. Equal monthly checks. The Rockefellers get the same check that you and I get, whatever the amount is. How will that work out for the majority of Americans based on what they use in energy today and what they're going to get back in their share of the rebate once a month, like a Social Security check? They will come out ahead. The break-even point is at about the 60th percentile. So anyone below the 60th percentile, in theory, at the first level of approximation, this is a tax cut. They're going to come out ahead. That's because energy use is really, it's high-income people. People can fly, own a couple of cars, have big houses. Energy is so directly tied to income, at least in this country, that it's very clear how this tax will play out. So as it can keep rising by $10 a year. What that really does, the importance of this is not where you start the tax or where you stop it. It's that the markets will not fund coal-fired power plants. They will fund efficiency and innovation, because they can look at this and say, where do we put our money? We're not going to build a coal-fired power plant when 40 years from now the price of carbon is going to be $4 higher. Yeah, it's only $10 higher now. Already we are seeing cutbacks because the market knows some kind of price on carbon is coming. They're starting to factor it in already, because the scientists around the world are beating on their governments. You've got to stay below 2 degrees. So that's the game that's going on. So to give it all back is 100% dividend. Now, let me, truth in lending here. I don't care what they do with the money. If government wants to keep every nickel and use it to solve the deficit, or give it all to renewable energy, or they can do whatever they want with it. The important point is get a fee that's going to stop carbon emissions, okay? 100% dividend is because that's what conservatives tell us they want, and we can't do this without conservative support. Bill McKibben, the smartest thing I ever heard come out of Bill McKibben's mouth is we desperately need conservative leadership, and we do. We're not going to do this without them, and I'm very honest, I'm working my butt off to find Republican support. The first one is going to